Welcome back for a little help on the progressive era. Today's focus is going to be specifically on political reform. So, as we cruise through this section, don't think about living conditions, working conditions, muckrakers. Really, we're thinking about problems in politics. So, if you can get your brain focused on that, let's get it going here. So, progressivism is a time period where we're dealing with reform, taking problems, and specifically fixing them. So we're going to today look at progressivism and governmental action. So reform will take place at various levels. It will take place at every level of government. So maybe small potatoes at the city level, definitely reforms at the state levels, and eventually it leads us to big changes in our national government. So as we continue to take a peek at that, first let's start small and we'll branch out and get larger with it. So what are the reforms in the city government? Well, in the cities, we're predominantly a bunch of urban. You had poor and rich people and middle class, everybody living in the city, but it's the middle class that are going to lead the reform movement, and they begin to attack the local political machines. We have defined a political machine as a kind of a person or someone in government who treats the city like it's their own little playground and pretty much does whatever they want to. They're probably stealing money, and they just continue to get reelected because a lot of these immigrant populations don't really understand what's happening. So the reformers are going to condemn the practice of taking bribes in return for political favors. All right, so that was happening, and the reformers want to change that. The progressives want to fix that. So they instituted the idea of actually running a city using the commissioner plan, and that is the mayor is not the end-all be-all. He can't make all the decisions by himself. The mayor and a council are going to be able to hire a city commissioner to run the municipal department. So if you have these multi-layers here, you have the mayor, you have the council watching over it, and you have the city commissioner making decisions. What tends to happen is with a lot of eyes on what's happening, there tends to be less corruption because you have certain checks and balances. So as the progressives respond to the urban problems, cities begin to improve. So city appearances begin to improve in terms of their cleanliness and the types of buildings that are being built. All right, so you have architects and city planners that are going to improve cities by constructing certain public buildings, especially museums, libraries. They're going to organize the city streets so there's an easy flow of traffic. Your engineers are going to step in and improve what really is affecting people. So sanitation, street lighting, the water system, both sanitary and sewer. So both the water people are drinking and the stuff that they're flushing down the toilet. All right. If we could bump up a level here, we'll take a quick peek at what's happening at the state level. Well, there was increased citizen participation at the state levels because people during the progressive era got more power in terms of their say in the government. So one of the ways in which that transpired was we began to use something known as the secret ballot. It is sometimes referred to as the Australian ballot because it first appeared in Australia. And really, that prevented the party boss or the party leaders or anybody from a political party from seeing how people voted. So, back in those old city days, you voted at your factory you worked at, and you were given a colored card for whatever political party. And basically, you had to go vote, and the boss man was watching you. So, to fix that, if we move to a secret ballot, now you actually have a choice because no one knows how you voted. All right. Another thing is an initiative, and this is something that truly came about during the progressive era that gave voters a say in creating laws. So actually, if you don't understand this, you actually have a say in creating a law. How do you do it? Well, it's a system that allows the voters, that's you guys, if you put together a petition and you get enough signatures on that petition, you can propose that to the legislature. And then it's up to the legislature to actually make the law. You can't make the law, but you can put pressure upon the legislature to actually make the law. So really, in the end, it gives you more power, all right? The other issue here is a referendum. That is, the voters, that's you guys, not the lawmakers, are going to decide whether to pass a certain bill, a certain proposed law, or even maybe a constitutional amendment. And how the referendum is put together is, let's say the government is thinking of spending money on a certain project. Before they do that, they would actually ask the voters, should we spend this money on this project? And if the voters say, yeah, that's a good idea, well, our lawmakers will continue to do that. So it's kind of like a check-in with the voters to see what the people want. Once again, the initiative, the referendum, the secret ballot all give you more power. So as we cruise through here, there's a couple more that we'll see. A recall is really nice. All right, so it is a form of a petition used by us, the voters, to force somebody we already elected into office out of office. So how that works is we elected someone, but that person is doing maybe not so good of a job. Well, we can put together a petition and actually have another vote to say we don't want that person doing the job anymore. So if someone's doing a bad job in government, we could actually get them recalled or removed from that office. The other one that pops up around the progressive era is the direct primary. Now, the primary is the vote to see who actually is going to run for office. So what the direct primary does is it allows the voters, not the political party, not the party leaders, the ability to choose who's actually going to run for a particular office. And those primary elections usually take place well before November, so people know who's going to be on the ballot in November. So once again, the recall, the direct primary are giving voters, giving us more and more and more power. All right. And the big one that pops up is obviously the 17th Amendment, which is the direct election of senators. And our two senators represent the people of our state. Well, who should vote for those senators? The people in the state. Before the 17th Amendment, our two senators were handpicked by the people running our government in the capital, which for us is Albany. If you're in a different state, it is whatever that state is. So in short, when we look at this here, the secret ballot, the initiative, the referendum, the direct election of senators gives more political power to who? To the people. Right, and we're parts of the Populist Party platform. If you remember the Populists, that was like the farmers movement in the late 1800s. The Populists kind of die out, but become the Progressives. So what do they basically say? That third parties actually can, and sometimes do, influence the other two major political parties, because these are all things that the Populists wanted, and they eventually happened during the Progressive era. So that once again, all those items give the voters, give the people more power. All right. So let's talk about state and some social, economic, and environmental reforms here. Well, it all starts in Wisconsin. So the Wisconsin governor, Robert La Follette, he was a very good governor, and he saw the need for change in his state of Wisconsin. So he begins to not wait for the federal government to do it. He begins to regulate railroads in his state. He regulated the lobbying that was happening and some of the political corruption that was happening. He regulated the banks in Wisconsin. He started civil service reforms before the Pendleton Civil Service Act. He shifted the tax burden to the wealthy before the 16th Amendment did that, before that graduated income tax. He required employers to compensate workers if they were injured on the job, before the federal government did. He began to inspect those factories to ensure fair and safe working conditions before the federal government did. So when we talk about a leader here, and once again, this was only happening where? It was happening in Wisconsin. In Wisconsin, at this time, it was referred to as kind of the laboratory for democracy. It was the first place where these things began to actually be done. And Robert La Follette was really taken seriously. And all of those issues that happened here, the whole list that we put together here, actually end up influencing our federal government. These are only happening at the state level, and then they make it to the federal level, and we're going to do that around the United States. So you got to give a little golf clap to Robert La Follette for doing that for the country, right? There was some other little reforms that happened kind of around the country. Take a peek at some of those. 1912, Massachusetts became the first state to pass a minimum wage law. Once again, it starts small at the state level. Today we have a federal minimum wage law that affects everybody. No state can go underneath that, right? Hiram Johnson reformed the railroad industry in California before the federal government started regulating railroads with the Interstate Commerce Commission, right? Teddy Roosevelt, before he was president, He was the governor of New York, 1899 to 1900. So very short-lived because the Republican Party was like, hey, we think this guy's going to help at the federal level. So they kind of yanked him out of New York and said, you're going to be working at the federal level. Well, he supported the creation of the New York State Tenement Commission to investigate those tenement houses, those city slums, the living conditions in New York State, and began to change them, right? Teddy also worked to eliminate the ugly sweatshops and factories in terms of long hours and low pay, and I showed you pictures of that on the fly, right? So that pretty much is political reform. Really, I'm going to take you back. What you should really study is the vocab right in here. So secret ballot, initiative, referendum, recall, direct primary, 17th Amendment. So you may want to take a second to truly study those and be ready for them. So we'll see you next time. Take care.